And those really 2 verses right there. Don't worry about anything. Instead, and that's the reallocation.
So
Instead,
good.
pray. And to me, that I just wanted to set that up because that's kind of the thing that, this whole podcast, what is it about? Glorifying God and helping people.
That's it.
That's it. That's all we want to do. And if we can help a handful of people, obviously we want to help as many as we can, to really have the awareness to go, golly, I'm wondering why I'm barely getting up in the morning, or I can't sleep at night, or I'm having these anxiety attacks, or I'm not seeing the results at work or at home or in my marriage or with my children that I've really wanted to see. Could it be that this is maybe one of the key topics that we can grow in this year?
I'm Mike O'Connell with my good friend Todd Doxzon, and we are back for another episode of Love Leadership. Can you believe it's February?
Come on, dude.
I mean, my goodness.
And we're in Omaha, Nebraska, Mike. You definitely are called by God to start a church if you leave Fort Lauderdale, Florida in February and come to Omaha, Nebraska. But you know what? Glory to God. He's keeping us warm. He's keeping us healthy. We're good.
He calls you from Florida,
God.
Me from Los Angeles, California, to the heartland.
To the heartland, baby.
Come on. Are you kidding me?
Ice, baby. Are you kidding me?
Dude, check this out. I just heard a pastor who's pastoring in Las Vegas, Nevada. He was sharing a video. He's in a sweatshirt talking about, man, I can't wait for winter to be over. This is terrible out here. I'm like, brother.
You have no idea.
Oh, negative 15 out here.
It was 84 degrees the day we left Fort Lauderdale in 2008, February 2008. We got here, it was like negative 20, negative 30 with the wind chill. And my wife looks at me like, what have you done? What are we doing here? The boys are little. We were literally playing beach like football the day before we left to move back here to start the church.
Look at us. We're just rapping about winter, but I think there's a lesson in this. What have you learned through winter seasons in Omaha? Man. My goodness.
Well, it's cool because can you be okay with Christ and Christ alone? Can you thrive when outside you're like, bro, I don't even want to go outside at all. I just want to hunker in this house and not move right now. Can you still thrive? Is your joy based on circumstance? And so many different lessons there.
And last month we talked about rhythms, and this man definitely has a rhythm in his calendar at the end of January and February every year. Man. Come on, Mexico. I mean, you're going somewhere south, aren't you?
And that's the thing. You got to get out of town for a few days, thaw out, get a little sunshine, bro. You get super pale by January, February. That's the beauty of having guys like Doc Greenwald in your life. Oh. He's just like, hey, bro, don't muzzle the ox while treading out the grain. It's that Bible verse about blessing the pastor. I'm like, I like that verse right there. And he'll say to you and I, all right, pack your bags, man. Let's go to my spot in Puerto Vallarta and let's do some kiteboarding and hanging out. So
Doc Greenwald's the man. Shout out, Doc. You're going to hear us talk about Doc all the time. He's a mentor to both Pastor Todd and I. And as a matter of fact, played a key role in you and I getting connected. We actually met in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico in 2011. Can you believe it's been, we're talking over a decade now.
And I remember distinctly when he actually called me, he said, hey, some of my graduating senior football players I'm going to take to my spot in Mexico. And I just need someone I need a pastor to come and just, maybe bring them through 1 Timothy or whatever. And I was like, let me pray about that. I'm in. When are we going?
1 Timothy and tacos.
Isn't that cool? Isn't that funny? Yeah. And then that many years ago, you and I just totally click, begin the bromance. And here we are this many years later, still doing ministry together, doing life together, get to see your kids born, grow up. Nothing cooler, man.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. Life has changed a lot in the last decade, but it's been a fun ride. Speaking of fun ride, today we are gonna get into the conversation. We're talking about energy reallocation, and I think this time of year, we're still at the beginning of the year, so people are evaluating new rhythms. By the way, we talked about that last month. If you missed that episode, go back, check it out. We talked about moving from New Year's resolutions to new rhythms.
Yeah. And
I think right in line with that, this really could be looked at as a part 2, because today we're talking about energy reallocation or energy management. I think so often in our culture today, we're inundated with this idea of time management. But I would love for you to just maybe set up this topic by just, opening us up with a few of your thoughts around energy reallocation.
Well, first of all, I would say I've learned a lot. Carrie Newhoff, Craig Rochelle, guys that we're standing on their shoulders. We've learned so much from them. Carrie wrote a phenomenal book, when it comes to looking at when are you most alive, your green, your yellow, your red zone. Craig's talked a lot about that as well. We've learned a lot. And I think from reading those books and hearing that content, there was something that kind of just snapped in me, and maybe I can just set it up for our time together. And it was really this idea of how many of us, Mike, are trying to control the things we can't control, and we're expending all this energy trying to control what we can't. And then by the time we show up to the things that we can control, we're completely zapped, and we don't have the energy. We're not showing up as the best version of ourselves to that environment. And you name it what it is. It's a big project at work. It is coming home and actually having a ton of energy for your marriage, your children. And it's this weird thing. We're zapped with all this. We're on social media, and we're all the anxiety of these last couple of years, and we're worried about what's going to happen to our kids in the future. And now all this energy is being exuded over things we can't control. And now we're limping into things that we can control. And then we're wondering why the results are flat in our life in all areas. And so there was just this big idea of like, okay, having said that, that's the problem. What's the solution? And really is being aware of when, we're all humans.
Yeah.
So there's going to be times where I'm starting to get anxious. I'm starting to try to control something I can't. How quickly can I identify that?
So good.
Be honest, maybe even with a brother or sister in Christ or someone around you, and go, your spouse. Right now, lately, I've been really so concerned about the kids' future that I'm stifled right now. I'm spending all this anxious energy trying to control. I don't know who's going to be elected. I don't know, when Jesus is coming back. I don't know what the economy is going to do. Are the rates going to continue to go up? What about my real estate portfolio? Am I going to lose everything? And I'm like, I'm so stifled by this that now I got a message to preach this week. Do I have enough energy? Am I zoning in on that? And so having awareness to go, okay, I feel myself going this way. Can you pray for me? We just need to stop. I need to admit that I'm wasting all this energy. God, give me the grace to just let that go, to trust you. It's because that's really what it is. It's a trust control issue. And give me the ability to trust you and really control what I can. What can I control? I can control having a great attitude, great effort in this certain area, and maximize the moment as I walk into this opportunity that he's provided for me. The verse is Philippians 4, and we've talked about this a lot. Philippians 4, so I'm going to read in the NLT, verse 6. Philippians 4, so Paul's writing to the church in Philippi, chapter 4, verse 6. He says, don't worry about anything. That's coming from Paul, in a jail cell. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for all he has done.
So good.
Then you'll experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus. And those really two verses right there. Don't worry about anything. Instead, and that's the reallocation.
So
Instead,
good.
Pray. And to me, that I just wanted to set that up because that's kind of the thing that, this whole podcast, what is it about? Glorifying God and helping people.
That's it.
That's it. That's all we want to do. And if we can help a handful of people, obviously we want to help as many as we can, to really have the awareness to go, golly, I'm wondering why I'm barely getting up in the morning, or I can't sleep at night, or I'm having these anxiety attacks, or I'm not seeing the results at work or at home or in my marriage or with my children that I've really wanted to see. Could it be that this is maybe one of the key topics that we can grow in this year?
Absolutely. And I think there's a couple things that you pointed out there. Number one, self-awareness. That's the key.
Such a big deal.
Right? So that's the starting point. But then once you become self-aware, the second thing that you said is, are we willing to be honest about it? Right. I think it's so easy, right, to stay in the deception or convince ourselves that it's not an issue or it's not a problem, and we overlook it. And that's ultimately going to take us towards the path of burnout. And so one of the things that I think that you've done a great job in teaching me in is utilizing this filter. Is what I'm feeling, is this energy depletion? Is it a season, or has it become a lifestyle? Can you unpack that idea for us? Because I think that's crucial for our listeners to really let that question be the filter for where they find themselves.
It's such a big deal because every season of our life is going to be different. And there's certain times and seasons where God is growing us lovingly, and he's kind of putting us in a position, a crucible, and there's a lot of growth that's happening. And it just feels like, man, we're getting attacked everywhere. I mean, it feels like overload with my schedule and my responsibilities. And honestly, there's times where I think that's a God-given gift, because what's happening, it's forced capacity growth.
Yeah.
Because we all say we want to maximize, we want to change the world. And well, if you don't grow your capacity, if God doesn't help you grow your capacity, you'll probably never do what you really want to do, right? As far as maximizing that. So that's good. But as far as if that becomes like, that's your entire lifestyle, it's just like you're on diminishing, you're on fumes the entire time. To me, it's only a matter of time where you're just going to hit the dust, right? So lifestyle seasons, it's seasons of growth. But again, I think it's even more than that. It's a day-to-day awareness. I think what you just said. With self-awareness, the key is humility. Okay, this is affecting me. Mm-hmm. I am allowing the things I can't control to control me. And that's a humble position, man. And to me, I think, again, it's being in community, people that you trust, that you can be vulnerable with, and say, man, this is where I'm at. I need to pray. I mean, again, it goes back to right here. Don't worry about anything. How many people listening right now, like, I'm worrying about everything right now? He just said, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. That's the reallocation. That's the shift that happens sometimes day to day, man, where, but I think here's what happens. Here's what I've noticed in my own life. Not that I got this perfect, but there's over time, at least if this is on our radar, you can, how do I say it? You can grab it earlier if you're aware of it. Okay, I am trying to control something I can't. I am wasting a ton of energy and time trying to control what I can't. If I'm at least aware of it, I'm able then to shift and pray quicker.
That's so good. Yeah, that's so good. Now, when it comes to this idea of energy management, I think so often, and the reason why I think there's such a correlation to last month's episode with rhythms, and I really want you to speak into this, is because of this. I think so many times, whether it's, week to week, in other words, many people work a 5-day work week and then they have 2 days off on the weekend, so on and so forth. So it's like all gas, no brakes. And then I, fill up the tank on the weekends if I can, if I'm not busy with kids' sports or whatever the case is. And how important is it to establish rhythms of putting things in your calendar that deposit energy in you? Like they fill the tank back up. We're not waiting for the weekend. We're not waiting for the next vacation or the next holiday to fill the tank up. I think you've done a good job of putting things in your daily and weekly rhythm where you're constantly filling up. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's a big deal. And we've talked about, Carrie did a great job with, okay, what's your green zone? Like when are you most alive? How did God create you? When are you running downhill, right? When are you bringing the most value? We've talked about this before. Do only what only you can do. Who's that? Andy Stanley that brought that concept. So what ends up happening is I'm running downhill. I'm actually getting energized at work because as the business or the family or the organization grows, you're more and more aware of what you're gifted to do, what you're most alive in doing. And now you're actually being energized at work, right? To your point. And now when you're home, you're a much better version, a much more energetic version of yourself when you're home. think the other thing too, again, is something simple as sleep. What's your sleep pattern when it comes to, healthy rhythms? Do you have a Sabbath? We've talked about this a lot, and every season's gonna be a little bit different. You're a mom of 5 and you're like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what that means. But even if it's like you're strategic on, taking a time out once a week, or even just for a couple hours and be like, yo, husband, you got these kids. I'm going to get my nails done, or I'm about to go just read a book at a coffee store, and I just need some time. But again, that's the power of rhythm. The little discipline you go, I am putting in that is a non-negotiable in my calendar. And then now again, what happens? The energy, it's a energy reallocation. I'm getting energized there. I'm understanding what energizes me, and I'm shifting in my weekly and yearly calendar what those rhythms are. And it's just a powerful thing. And I think you said it works together. The rhythms and that reallocation, that energy reallocation, they work hand in hand.
Absolutely. And so we want to give you a tool even right now, or an exercise that you can do. We're talking about awareness. We're talking about being honest with yourself. We're talking about healthy rhythms that actually establish energy. So here's a very practical exercise that you can take away right now. You pull out a piece of paper, pull out your phone, whatever the case is. And what you need to do is you need to start by taking inventory.
Yeah.
So I want you to write down every single thing that right now you are doing in your life. You could do this professionally and personally. You could lump it all together, but write down and get down everything that you're currently doing. And then start with getting aware what actually energizes you and what zaps you. And right there through that exercise, you're going to understand what actually gives you energy, and then what takes away energy. And then what you're going to try to do is anything that is zapping your energy, you need to ask this question. Can I eliminate it? Can I automate it? Or can I delegate it? And this is a very practical exercise.
Really good,
you can do this even on the personal side. Some of you moms out there, I love you. You care so much. You're pouring out your heart, but you're doing it all. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's time to outsource a couple of those items so that you can get some of your energy back. So this is a very practical exercise that our listeners can do. And I wanted to give them this exercise, PT, because I think, we're in the month of February. We're talking relationships. Something that we're extremely passionate about is not just thriving in the workplace.
That's right.
But winning at home, right? It's winning in our front stage and our backstage. And I think we were talking off air about this, and I think I'd love for you to just share your heart and your thoughts on this. But I think the reason why we're talking about this is because if we're zapping our energy inside of our organizations or the thing that we're called to do, which we're called to do it, we've got to be responsible human beings. But if we don't have awareness inside the organization, we're expounding or expending all this energy on things that zap us. Then when we go home to the people that we love the most, where legacy is created, and we have nothing but scraps. I mean, can you just talk about why this is so important, especially in the month of February? We're talking about relationships, and people are saying, "Man, how do I get better? How do I do both of these things well?"
What immediately comes to mind, Mike, is just real life for me and Denise. And there were a lot of things that we said no to when it came to the church. There were a lot of meetings we said no to. There was a lot of fundraising things we said no to. And we just committed to saying our family's going to be healthy. Our marriage, we have a non-negotiable. I remember when the kids were little, we'd drop them off at Lifegate School, and it was our day off, and Denise and I would go to a little Thai place, and we'd have a little Thai date, and then we'd go get TCBY yogurt. And that was a non-negotiable. Every Tuesday, like it didn't matter. If we're in town, that's what we're doing. And it might sound dumb, but again, that's the healthy rhythm and the energy reallocation where we are allocating that time. And it's wild because now the kids are, they're grown kids, and, we love each other. We're heading to 23 years of marriage.
Come on.
Dude, we're like best friends. Like we'll look at each other sometimes and be like, you're my best friend. No, you're my best friend. And it's like, what is that? That doesn't just happen.
Yes.
That's part of, again, understanding who you are, being self-aware, that energy reallocation, that healthy rhythm that sets you up for the long haul. And that's a key. I wanted to add, you made just a great thought, Mike, and that great exercise of writing down the stuff that you do, what brings you energy, what doesn't. And I love that. Automate, delegate. What was the other one?
Eliminate. Some stuff just gotta die, baby.
That's so true.
You gotta kill something.
And I love the seasonal model because it gives you that practicality. The other thing I would say is writing down the things that you're trying to control right now that you cannot control.
So good.
What are we expending a ton of energy on social media, worried about what's happening in the economy and politics and when's Jesus coming back and all that. Like we're putting all this energy on stuff we can't control. I mean, he said, no one knows the time or hour. So maximize the moment, right?
That's it.
Plan like he's going to come back in 200 years from now, right? But live ready that he's going to come back tomorrow. Control what you can, but like, what are the things we're trying to control right now that we can't? What's going to happen to the kids in this wild world? All that I would challenge, write it down and then pray and just start crossing them out. That's what this is all about. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything.
Wow.
Write it down. Just start praying over it and just see what happens.
Wow.
See what happens if we could reallocate our energy to the things we can control. Guess what? What can you control? When you're doing laundry as a stay-at-home mom, you can be, my wife would, man, she was such an inspiration. She'd be she'd be like washing the clothes, praying about the kids, about to get into those clothes. Talk about, she can't control what's going to happen at school, but she can control her prayer life over her children.
Come on, man.
Preparing a meal, like with as unto the Lord, with joy and passion, you name it, preparing a talk or, whatever it is. Lean into the things you can control that. And now what happens is this energy shift and now the fruit that is produced from the things we can control, it's totally different. It's a completely different output.
This is so good. And as you're literally talking, I'm having a revelation. I'm reminded of, I think Chad Veach wrote this book recently. He said, it's titled this, Worried About Everything Because I Pray About Nothing.
Oh,
and now listen to this though. Here's
I gotta read his book.
Yeah, I gotta read into that a little bit more. But here's the revelation that I had is prayer ushers in peace, and peace is what allows us to stay present in the moment. Oh, so it's like prayer, peace, present.
You're present.
And so you're
bringing your best self there.
That's what I mean. Like so many of us, as you were talking, I'm like, man, what are the things like? So often I'm worried about the future or what's gonna happen rather than living life right here in this moment with the people I love the most, enjoying life, having a blast, making memories. I miss out on here and now because I'm worried about tomorrow. However, if all I have to worry about is casting those cares on God, is praying, is staying connected to Him, and the fruit of that, His word says it, that He ushers in the peace, and the peace really protects us from worrying. Man. And so it's like, that's so beautiful. You just set that up, man. Are you kidding me?
Crushed it.
What an absolute
message. We got to be preaching that soon.
That's it. We got to be preaching that. So, okay, I want to dive really, really, really granular, practical. Okay. You alluded to it with a marriage rhythm that you established. Okay. But I think, what I love about the life that you live is, hey, it's Sunday and I'm in the front row and I look to my left and your two kids are there and your wife and you're there and you guys are worshiping God and you're going to go up and preach a message. And Andy Stanley says this, his one goal in parenting was that when the kids went out of the house,
they'd want to come back. Even
they'd want to come back.
They didn't have to, yeah.
And your boys want to come back and they're there on the front row. And I think, we're talking about energy reallocation. We're talking about rhythms, and you guys were methodical in your family rhythms. So just share what those were. I mean, there were certain places that you went to for like 12, 13, 14 years at the same time every year. But that's really practical for our listeners. Like those were non-negotiable boulders that you guys built into your life, and you just weren't moving anything for them.
Man, that's really good, Mike. Let me just try to give you the Cliff Notes version of it. I want to give honor to where honor's due. When we left Calvary Fort Lauderdale, we had amazing leaders that helped equip us. Hey, as you go out, you got to set rocks in your schedule. And so we would literally take our yearly calendar. There were non-negotiables. I mean, there's one day a week, my email was completely off. We had March, all of our birthdays were together. So we had a getaway as a family. May is our anniversary. So there was non-negotiable 3 or 4 days, just Denise and I. So for years we had these rocks in our yearly schedule that we didn't mess with. And people would judge us and, I can't believe you're taking. And I'm like, dude, I want to honor God with this, right? So we'd set that up, and then we'd have weekly rhythms. We'd have daily. One of the things that was really cool is we had all these people live with us, and in the morning we'd make breakfast together. And Denise was so good. She would, all right, you got the fruit. You're cutting up the fruit. You're making the bacon. You're making the eggs. And it was just this group effort. And then we always read the daily reading together. At night was the Orange Bible, with the kids, where we'd pray for them as they went to bed. It was powerful. One of the seasons for years, we had what's called Triple D. So we have twin boys, devotional donuts with daddy. I know it sounds a little lame now, but something as simple as that, the kids knew every Saturday they were going to get a devotional in the Word of God, and they were going to get a donut of their choice.
Come on, fresh donuts.
And and you would adapt over the years, but there were rhythms that we had that were non-negotiable. A date day, usually a date night for Denise and I weekly. There was just those things. And again, it was rhythms. It was this reallocation of certain time, because at the end of the day, you only have a certain amount of time. You're going to spend it, that time, that energy. The question is, how are we going to maximize that, stay healthy for the long haul? Because anybody can just start a church or start a business, start a family. And it's exciting. Let's go, But the people that I really look up to are the people that they stayed consistent for the long haul. They finished well. How do you do that? Healthy rhythms, energy reallocation. Don't get zapped on stuff you can't control, right? Be very practical about that and proactive.
It's so good, man. It's heartbreaking. I recently read a statistic that the average pastor is a pastor for 2.5 years. Can you believe that? I mean, it's, and there's no judgment on that.
No,
but it's just,
I believe it.
But I do think that I would actually really love to wrap up this conversation with, like, right now I'm thinking of the person that is on, man, they're on the edge of the cliff. They're near burnout. They're ready to tap. We've given some practical exercises. We've given some good resources during this episode. Yeah. So there's plenty of things for you to check out. But what would you speak to that person? Would you just speak some life and some hope into the person that's like, man, I feel like I have no energy. I don't know what to do. I just feel like giving up, tapping, I'm done.
I'll just immediately, what comes to mind is we have a pastor on our team who went through probably the most gut-wrenching tragedy I can imagine. And I remember meeting with him, after his spouse passed, and, he was doing the best he could. He was leading a church. He was running on fumes. He was dealing with tragedy and heartbreak, and just, you can imagine being overwhelmed. And one of the things that when we talked, I said, hey, we'd love to help and support you in any way. As you come onto the team, all I want you to do is get healthy and get supported. And there's something about having a season of support, and there's not a ton of responsibility. It's just, man, get healthy. And I know I'm going back to this a lot, but the power of community, man. One of the keys that I would say is a lot of us feel so lonely as pastors and as lead pastors or organizational leaders. And, and there's part of it, that's part of it, but man, bring people into your environment and get each other's back, be vulnerable, it's really cool to see now, this many years later, one of the most energetic guys in the room always is this pastor on our team that I just have the utmost respect for, because, man, I'm telling you, many times, he would tell you, I would guess, many times he was ready to tap, many times, but God's grace, he showed up through a lot of other people as well by his Spirit, his word. And now, he's one of my favorite guys to be around. Talk about energy. But I would just say, the enemy came to steal, kill, and destroy. But Jesus said, I came to give life and life to the full, abundant life. And you may feel like tapping now. Don't do it. Be honest, be transparent, get around some people, get healthy. Maybe you need to take some time off. That's fine, but don't give it all up.
There you go. Don't carry your burden alone. Man, we're just so thankful. Hopefully today you were encouraged, inspired. we're just believing and trusting that maybe there was a practical nugget that you can apply in your life so that you can be healthier, so that as you walk out 2023, you have more energy and really more energy for the things that matter the most to you. That's really our heart in this episode. And if you were encouraged by what we talked about today, there's going to be more content coming. So we would just say, hit the subscribe button. Hey, leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you as well. We want to continue the conversation and dialogue, even outside of this conversation. And also follow us along on the journey at Love Church Omaha. We'd love to connect with you on there. And we want to do all we can to serve you and help you in this season of your leadership. Until next time, we'll see you. What's up, Love Leadership fam? Man, we know that if you're tuning in, you love to lead. And we hope that this episode brought you value. We're going to be dropping a new episode the third Thursday of every month. So subscribe, like. Also, there's more Love Leadership content for you on our channel. Go check it out right now. We can't wait to see you next month.